Hello and welcome back. This is part 4 of the Unreal walkthrough. We are on the level Temple of Vandora by Jean-Claude. This map does a pretty good job of separating itself from the Cheeser level set. It is in fact not very comparable with the exception of the maps being temples and whatnot. Once more, this map is a bit grungy, but it has a more valid excuse. It's a ruined temple. This actually goes well with the atmosphere because it doesn't seem grungy and grim to the extent that it is dull, such as Dark Arena or to an extent Terra New. The architecture is actually pretty interesting. Claude does his best to avoid cubes and tends to use arced hallways in his designs and interiors, and most of all, somewhat more complex interiors than in many of the other maps overall. The gameplay is pretty balanced, I would say, but it is also kind of on the light side. The story implementation there is little of in this map, and maybe some of you would argue that the progression of the character conveys the storyline, but that's a bit of a vague storyline. A lot of the maps attempt to make an effort to depict life on Apolly and its characteristics, etc., and I see none of that in Vandora. So overall, I'd say that it does create an entertaining and an eye-catching atmosphere, though you could say that not much of it is achieved through conceptual grandness. This is a memorable map, but it's not as memorable as it should be. But it is definitely well developed, so I gave atmosphere a 4, conceptual grandness a 3, gameplay a 4, visual impact 4, and storyline implementation 1. And by the way, I might also do a review and slash walk of Unreal Return to Napoli. The only problem is that if I do it on the actual game, because I have a Windows 64-bit, so if I do it on the actual game, and I put it on Direct 3D instead of software rendering, it's going to go crazy, just like it did on my laptop, which is also Windows 64. So when I try to play it, it did this weird, bizarre thing, and I know for a fact that it's because of it being Direct 3D. That's the problem, because it went fast and slow, and then it just like messed up. It's almost as if that Direct 3D thing modifies the speed, the little speed of the game. Maybe because of the drive or something, I don't know, but obviously that game isn't supposed to be ran on something so modern, I guess you could say. So once more, I might have to get the Unreal Return to Napoli to Unreal Tournament conversion thing. That's a little mutator that lets you play Return to Napoli on Unreal Tournament. And that's really the only reason I have this on Unreal Tournament. I mean, old school doesn't really give you any advantages over the original Unreal. I mean, sure, there may be some weird replacements like the minigun for some reason. Unreal Tournament minigun being on the original Unreal, and the screwed up amplifier, but other than that, I don't see much of a difference. Now, I don't want to talk about Return to Napoli right now, as I'm doing the original Unreal, but I will say that some of the things that the game designers in Unreal sort of missed the bullseye on, they definitely do a better job at it on Return to Napoli. Especially, I'd say, with the gameplay, the detail of maps, and definitely storyline implementation. Now, let me point out that this upcoming scene is peculiar because of the translator event. It's actually a metaphorical little message to the player. I quote, "He who follows me shall become as elusive as the mist." Well, how do you follow her? By doing what she does. What does she do? Place fire in the fountain. So, do that. Really, you don't have any fiery weapons, so suppose if you put a flare in the fountain, and voila. Honest to God, I actually looked at this area in Unreal Editor and noticed that the trigger to open the doors is actually a class proximity trigger with the class set to flare. After that, the metaphor becomes a little more obvious. This is actually very useful for the next map. After defeating the Titan, you can turn on the invisibility in the next map, pretty much pass by everyone, so the trench should be a 1-minute map, really. So let me just give you a few tips for the Titan fight upcoming. Because of the fact that there is no pillar really or anything to you know, that you could use to sort of exploit the fight, what you need to do is just go from left to right, just keep walking either left or right. When you get to the end of either the left or right side, you just try to get on the higher platform. And there's two ways of doing that. Either take the stairs or let his little hit the ground thing boost you up so you can get up there and then just continue going that way. Just watch out for the rocks, because eventually, or every so often, one might bounce awkwardly or unusually towards you and hit you, and they do a lot of damage. You usually die from one hit, unless you have a ton of armor. And that skybox sort of reminds me, one of the most peculiar things I see out of the original Unreal is the skyboxes are actually, in comparison to, for example, Half-Life, which came out actually a few months after Unreal. The Unreal skyboxes are extremely detailed and rather realistic in comparison to its competitors in 1998. And in fact, the Unreal Engine was, I believe, or the original Unreal Engine at that time was the most advanced gaming engine of the year. So it's still a bit peculiar to see that you can actually make areas very, very realistic or extremely detailed through things that the mappers don't really use in Unreal, the original Unreal, such as the ice texture or bump maps and things like that. But yeah, I think that the best skybox maker really is Misha the Sled Dog, and I know that Misha the Sled Dog is probably the mapper who rate the highest hero. I can't say that he's necessarily my favorite, but in terms of mapping, he really does a great job at implementing all the things that a map really needs to be memorable and fun, really. But anyway, there are some interesting articles over there on RealSpeed. The one that you should definitely look at, even if you're not a mapper, because it's quite peculiar, is the ice texture tutorial article. I think it's made by Mr. Prophet, because it details not only the ice texture, which is a really unused and underestimated aspect of Unreal mapping, but it also has things like a bump map and how to layer your zones water zones and things like that to make it look rather realistic. And if you look at some of them, it's kind of funny because Half-Life, which the original Half-Life was made on the enhanced Quake 2 engine, has water that actually flows, it actually moves, whereas Unreal has flat textures, or excuse me, flat brushes to make the water. However, with things like bump map, you could actually, or bump textures, you could actually make water appear as if it is flowing. In some examples, even better than the water in Half-Life. And this is also true with lighting. In Half-Life, although the lighting it's not horrible, in Unreal Tournament, or excuse me, Unreal, you could actually make the lighting extremely detailed as well, and there are some examples of that too. And I don't know exactly why the mappers didn't choose to make the textures highly detailed like they, and make their water and things like that. Maybe it's just that they didn't know. I don't know. But it's sort of amazing what you can do with such an old game engine. And obviously you could look at some of the examples in later campaigns that definitely implement those kinds of things. So I bet that you could tell simply by the maps we are covering that this is a rather long video. The next map is ISV Deck 4. Now, before I say anything else, I've got to point out that for some reason a couple of videos disappeared, so it sort of skips from the beginning of the map to halfway into it. What you do in the beginning is simple. Kill all the Scar that keep coming out until a hatch opens, and then go through the air ducts until you find a computer panel, press it, and the door, the garage-like door, should open. Now, Misha the Sled Dog's ISV Cran map group is a tough call because the gameplay is intense for the most part. The architecture seems to favor complexity, and the atmosphere gives a sense that the player is in deep waters, so to speak. But the repetition of corridors is kind of annoying. It doesn't affect it to a great extent. That is, doesn't affect the map to a great extent. But it is still something to consider. The architecture is interesting because, unlike the Terra New map group, it's actually less grungy and more futuristic or high-tech. That's a good thing in my opinion. I really don't like repetition, again I say. Though I'd have to say that ISV Deck 1 is probably one of, if not the most annoying map in the entire game. I have to admit that I had to retry it a few times because of the perpetual spawning Scar everywhere. As far as storyline goes, the background of the ISV Cran is very detailed, so that is a plus. Ultimately, I gave it an atmosphere of 4, conceptual grandness of 2, gameplay 5, visual impact 3, and storyline implementation 5, leaving us with an overall rating of 3.6. So anyways, as I was saying, Unreal Return to Non-Poly definitely picks up on the storyline very well, and overall Unreal and Unreal Return to Non-Poly made a pretty solid storyline. The problem is that after that, for some reason, I don't know why exactly, Epic decided to allow a company that really had no experience or little experience in developing Unreal. So Unreal 2 was made by Legend Entertainment, the developers, of course, of Epic Games. But the problem was that I think people like Cliff Bleszinski and Misha Sled Dog, people like that, were not involved in the creation of it. So basically, you get a game that really doesn't tie with the storyline. Like at the end of Non-Poly, sort of spoiler if you haven't played it, the guy just leaves, escapes in that small spaceship, but then the storyline never really ended, never officially ended. So, as I was saying, you have people like Matthias Warch and Grace Edge who have experience in Unreal, Unreal storyline and whatnot, in the development team of Unreal 2. Though I don't think that Cliff Bleszinski or James Schmalz were directly involved with the development of Unreal 2. But anyway, people like that were in the development team for Unreal 2, and yet it still did not match up. It didn't fit the original Unreal storyline, really anything of it, other than maybe the scar and some references to, for example, the Lyandri Corporation, Izanagi Corporation, which really don't play a part at all in the original Unreal or Unreal Return to Nepali. That's more of a Unreal Tournament issue. So I don't exactly know why they decided to take a different venue, and the problem with game companies is that they think that players want something new like that. I mean, something completely new. For example, Unreal to Unreal 2. But people don't like that. I think most Unreal fans would agree with me that Unreal 2 didn't take the turn that people expected it to take, especially after Unreal Return to Nepali. And people do this with a lot of games. For example, World of Warcraft, if you will, took a really awkward turn because they implemented things that the players didn't really want. That's why they're getting losing subscriptions of 2 million and more. The Sonic franchise, for example, is another big one. They really slapped fans in the face. Duke Nukem Forever. And I could go on about all these kinds of games, and the collective problem with these sorts of games is that their sequels aren't what the players want. Now, I don't exactly know why the companies do this, but it's sort of embarrassing, I think, for Epic to have done that twice. Really, once mostly with Unreal 3, but still. But at least Unreal 2 had some connections to the storyline. There were Scar, for example, and really the player and everything was still in the Unreal world. The problem is that while Unreal 2 does have some connections to the original Unreal storyline, it doesn't, first of all, it doesn't connect to the original plot, and second of all, it doesn't really connect to the original Unreal atmosphere. And again, that's the problem with Epic selling out sort of to these other development teams, and that's not necessarily a problem. The problem comes from the fact that they don't have experience or how should I say this, credible knowledge or credibility as to how to create an Unreal world and an Unreal storyline. So there you have just a sort of, it's not necessarily a sequel because it's not furthering the storyline from Return to Nepali. It's furthering its own storyline that it created itself.